Another draft lottery? Are you kidding me? I thought the whole point of the brand extension in the first place was to create separate and distinct brands with talent exclusive to each show. But on the very same show that you announced that Santino Marella is going to be having an upcoming match on SmackDown without bothering to give any explanation for how he can even appear on SmackDown since he's contracted to Raw, you announce another draft lottery? You know, it's probably my fault that I don't understand this. I probably shouldn't bother trying to apply simple logic and reason to the WWE anymore. But I need to put a question out there, and hopefully you guys can answer it. If you're not going to enforce the brand extension, if you're going to have wrestlers crisscrossing between the brands every single week with no explanation ever given, then what the hell is the point of a draft lottery? To waste our time again? To insult our intelligence again? And another thing. If you people think for 1 second that Vince McMahon is going to be giving away $1 million every single week, you really are the mindless sheep that he thinks you are. $1 million, my ass. You know there's going to be some kind of bullshit loophole because of the way he phrased it or something like that, and it's only going to sound like it'll be $1 million a week, but the odds of winning it are going to be so small that you'll need a fucking microscope to see it or something. And you know why he's doing this? Because ratings are still down and Vince can't figure out how to stop the bleeding. So he's doing the only thing he can think of instead of, you know, trying to actually produce a show that's watchable for a change. He's going to go for cheap pandering and lame-ass shock TV. Like, that's actually going to work. And if Vince thinks that giving away a chance to win $1 million a week is something that's never been done on TV before, then I think he needs to have a talk with Eric Bischoff, or better yet, Howie Mandel. You know, maybe they could tell him how original that idea actually is. Fuck you, Vince. Fuck you. Damn, another hard impact to review this week. There was a lot of good stuff on this show, but also a lot of frustrating stuff, and I liked some things, but there were some other things that just didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. And I'm going to cover these all by bullet points. Bullet point number 1. The title of this show is called AJ's Revenge. Okay? So for the opening segment, the heels come out, and they run down AJ Styles on the mic. AJ's an adulterer, he's a wife stealer, he's worse than Hitler, blah blah blah. And the babyfaces start coming out, and that's all well and good. So they're talking, and I start thinking, when's AJ coming out? When's AJ coming out? So after about 20 minutes of talking, things finally start to get physical, and AJ comes out with a steel chair to finally get some payback on the heels, and just when he starts to kick their asses, they cut backstage for a Karen Angle interview. There's something very wrong with this. And unless I'm imagining things, stuff like this seems to happen an awful lot whenever Karen Angle is on the program. TNA seriously needs to lay off the Karen Angle worship already. And I'm not trying to disrespect her as a performer or as an on-air talent or anything like that, because I happen to think that she is, you know, decently talented. But whenever she's scheduled to be on the show, she tends to get more face time and more mic time than the entire X Division and Knockouts Division put together. And these last two shows were a perfect example of that. Okay? She did what she was supposed to do. AJ and Kurt finally hate each other. Now it is time to move Karen Angle into the background and hand the spotlight over to the wrestlers. Bullet point number 2. For the second week in a row now, Petey Williams and Kaz were nowhere to be seen, which is really strange because I could have sworn that they had a big title match coming up at a pay-per-view pretty soon. And for the third week in a row, the Eric Young video was absolutely pointless, so they could have easily, you know, taken that out and had Petey Williams and Kaz doing something, and it would have been a lot better. Anyway, number 3. In a backstage segment, Jeremy Borash made Jim Cornette aware that the Awesome Kong Squashes a Fan segment from last week was the highest rated segment of that show. This is not true at all. In fact, it was actually one of the lowest rated segments of that show. Now, I don't blame TNA for screwing up here this time, because this show was taped well before the ratings for last week came out, and seeing as how the knockout segments have been drawing pretty much the highest ratings on the show just about every week for about 5 months now, they really had no way to know that it wouldn't hold true for Kong that it wouldn't hold true for Kong last week. I just hope the TNA will be a little more careful before they make false claims without the right information next time, because once is an accident and twice is stupidity. Number 4, the Ace Young thing. Now, shockingly, I'm putting this one in the plus column, and I'll tell you why. The way TNA used Ace Young on this show demonstrated how to properly utilize a celebrity, or quasi-celebrity, on a wrestling show. They set it up last week, so his being there made sense. It didn't feel like it was just there as some lame-ass, cheap publicity stunt. He didn't dominate the show or overshadow any of the talents. He was used as a complement to the wrestlers and the storyline, unlike some other examples where it was the other way around. Like, oh, I don't know, Floyd Mayweather or Pac-Man Jones. This was the right way to do it. And even that god-awful music video had a point to it, because Jay Lethal and SoCal Val were in the music video. I actually thought that was kind of cool. I mean, the song still sucked, but I thought that was cool that Jay and Val were in it. And, who knows, TNA might end up getting some publicity out of this. So, whatever. Number 5. Another surprise in the plus column is the Christian and Tomko match. Now, when I read the spoilers earlier this week, or last week, whenever it was, I was all set to go on a big rant about this and how they should have saved this match for a pay-per-view, but I'm not going to do that because TNA actually did a pretty good job of making this match look like a big deal. They had a video package going over their whole history, and it was the main event of the show. It was the longest match on the show by a mile, and it was a very good match. TNA didn't treat it like a throwaway match. They made it look important, and that's why it worked. Number 6. Another very hot angle to close the show, with AJ and Christian getting laid out by the heels again. I liked this a lot, even though it made absolutely no sense for LAX and Rhino to not come out and help them at the end. I didn't like that part, but otherwise this was a very, 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 very good segment. I think AJ and Kurt Angle is being built up great. We're looking at a double main event now for Slammiversary, and that's awesome. And I expect Slammiversary to be a pretty awesome pay-per-view, too. I mean, the show is looking more and more stacked every week, and there's still plenty of space left on the card. They haven't even announced the women's match yet. They're probably going to go with ODB and Roxy versus Velvet Love Entertainment again, since Gail Kim is still selling the knee injury. That would be my guess. But there might be another woman getting involved in that, too. That might change the complexion of that matchup somehow. I believe she's going to show up next week. I guess that's kind of a spoiler, but it's not a really big spoiler. So anyway, you guys stay tuned for that one. I will talk to you next week. See you later.